Hey guys, what is going on? Jurgen from ZurGrinoSports here, and today we are coming at you with the 25th of December, or the Christmas edition of the Smackdown review. Overall, it was a really good show. I liked it. There was not a single match that was of low quality. The decisions were good, in my opinion. There were a couple that I was torn on. There's a couple that I'll nitpick. But for the most part, the show was really, really good. I was expecting it to be good because they advertised a lot of big things. The cage match, the Intercontinental title match, the women's tag titles, all that stuff. And the show definitely delivered. It was really good, in my opinion. They started it off with the steel cage match for the WWE title. Obviously, the Intercontinental title match ended up main eventing. The results for that leaked on Tuesday when it was taped, so that was kind of unfortunate, but it makes sense why they put the WWE title match at the start of the show and then the Intercontinental title match at the end of the show, given the results of both. And also, SmackDown was starting right after the NFL game that was on, so I guess if people are staying on Fox to watch SmackDown, they'll see Roman Reigns as the first thing they see, which might entice them to stay on because Roman's jacked and he's fucking huge. Yeah, WWE title match rematch from TLC. Really, really good match. Both guys did really well. There was a cool fisherman buster off the top rope or middle rope that Kevin Owens did to Roman Reigns, which looked really fucking good. There was a smart spot with Owens in between the ropes and the cage and Roman getting the guillotine on him, but KO pulled Roman down onto the top rope from his neck, choking Roman, which caused the release of the guillotine. So that was pretty cool. KO tried to pin Reigns after a stunner, and Roman Reigns kicked out, and then it went to commercial. But before it went to commercial, Kevin Owens kind of looked at him like, oh shit, like I can't pin him, I'm going to have to escape kind of thing. And then when we came back from commercial, he was trying to escape. And for the rest of the match, he was trying to escape to win. So it kind of put over, like, he tried to beat him within the ring. He tried to beat him with pinfall. Didn't work. And then he has to try and escape the cage now. Granted, Roman started doing a bit of the same because Roman was hitting him with some big shit, some big moves, and he wasn't putting Kevin Owens away. So both of them tried to beat each other by pinfall in the ring. Didn't work, so they had to resort to trying to escape. There was a cool spot when they came back from commercial where Kevin Owens and Reigns were on the top rope going up the cage. KO does a super kick to Roman, tries to swanton onto Roman. Roman gets his knees up, and then gets up and then hits a spear on Kevin Owens, and it was a really good-looking spear, and KO kicks out. Owens kicks out, and Reigns looks in disbelief. There was a cool cage door spot, which it was like Roman was trying to escape, and Kevin Owens was clawing at his clothes to get him to kind of be like, oh, come on, you really think you have a chance? Just long enough for him to recover and then pull the cage door onto Reigns, and then that left him kind of groggy, and then he smashed his head against the cage repeatedly. So that was a pretty cool spot. There was a Jay interference after that where Kevin Owens was starting to, make way to walk out of the cage door. Jay kind of closes it on him. But then Kevin Owens hits Jay with the door, swinging it out, and Roman makes the save, doesn't let him interfere. Some time goes on, and then Kevin Owens hits another stunner on Roman, and then he immediately motions towards the cage, starts going towards the cage door. Jay reaches through the cage with handcuffs. One of them's already connected to the cage, and handcuffs Kevin Owens' hand to the cage so he can't escape. He's close enough to the door where he can get his lower half of his body through the cage door, but he can't make his feet hit the floor, so he can't win, but he's so close. He's agonizingly close, so that was a really good spot. And then Reigns arrogantly and slowly walks by. When he notices, he's like, oh, hell yeah, that's dope shit, Jay. And then he walks out, and then he's like staring at him and talking shit to him. Kevin Owens calling him a bitch as he's going out of the ring, and then he's just looking at him really arrogant and stuff. Great match to start it off. The right result. Obviously, Roman shouldn't lose the title for a long time. Both guys get over again, in my opinion. Kevin Owens looks good, Roman looks good, and then Kevin Owens once again is outnumbered for the finish. He doesn't lose clean. Even if he does lose clean, if they continue this rivalry, because they didn't really set up Bryan and Roman, which I thought that they would. So I think maybe they're going to do Roman and Kevin Owens again even after this, but I don't know. We'll see. But if they do, eventually Roman's probably going to have to win clean against Kevin Owens, and even when he does, that's not going to bury Kevin Owens, because it'll just be like, okay, Kevin Owens is really good, but Roman's just better. So losing to somebody who's as protected as Roman doesn't really bury you, depending on how you lose. But that was a really good start to the match. Good start to the show. Really good match, great finish, a lot of spots. So that was a really good start. Then we had the Asuka and Charlotte title defense, which ended up being a triple threat elimination tag match. The teams were Bayley and Carmella, and Sasha and Bianca on the challengers. They had a pre-match promo where Charlotte was like, hey, Charlotte and Asuka back on Smackdown. Asuka cut a promo in Japanese, which obviously I don't speak Japanese, so I don't know what the fuck she said. But she has really good charisma, so she could say anything in Japanese and people would pop, so it's fine. Then Bayley's music hits. She interrupts. She's like, oh, yo, it's impressive you guys are here, but you know what's impressive? Me. 2020 was shit for everybody, but it was great for me. I was women's champion for 380 days. Sasha music hits. She gets in. She's like, oh, you want to talk about who's champion right now, Bayley? Because that's impressive. Bianca's music hits. She gets in the ring, talks to Bayley. Oh, you're talking about impressive. I'm the EST of WWE, strongest, fastest, toughest, whatever. Her whole gimmick, putting herself over. Carmella's music hits. She calls the people witches and then bitches or something like that, puts herself over, saying, oh, you want to know what's impressive? I'm the only woman in this ring who's naughty and nice, and then nice and naughty, or some shit like that, I guess. And then Sasha pushes her, and then they cut to commercial. Bayley tries to keep the peace between them before they go to commercial, though, which doesn't really make sense, because Bayley and Carmella are a team. So you'd think that Bayley being a heel and Carmella being a heel, you'd think that Bayley would just retaliate against Sasha, kind of starting a brawl to go off the air, and then when they come back, the match is started, but it is what it is. I have a problem with the match itself, because I understand that it's the Christmas episode, so they want all their star power in the match, right? Sasha, Bayley, Carmella, Bianca, they want their stars in there. That's fine. But logically speaking, the Riot Squad have 2 tag team wins in a row, granted over makeshift teams of Billy Kay and, find a partner. But 2 tag team wins in a row, and they didn't get the match. Another issue I had with it was that it was a elimination match, because it meant that more people needed to take pins than was necessary. You know what I mean? There was a cool Bianca and Charlotte spot in the match where they go head-to-head. Charlotte gets the upper hand, and then they go head-to-head. Bianca gets the upper hand, then they go head-to-head, and they're even, kind of thing. And it's only a small thing, but it's good because it gives the casual viewer the thought in their head that Bianca matches up to Charlotte, and to the casual viewer, Charlotte is the top, right? Because that's how they book her. So it elevates Bianca, which I liked. They had a double drop kick spot, which I don't like. I just think aesthetically the double drop kick thing just doesn't look as cool as they want it to look. But that's not really a big deal. They had cool little spots here and there where heels were being good heels. Carmella and rivalries were being advanced. Carmella, when she was when she was one of the legal participants in the match, attacked Sasha on the apron, then went back to the match. Carmella also later in the match tagged in Charlotte, even though she's not on her team, because she was getting her ass whipped a little bit, kind of thing. Just good heel work within the match. There was Bayley was the one to take the pin for Carmella and Bayley, which makes sense because Carmella is still in the rivalry with Sasha. They're probably going to run that back at Royal Rumble for the women's title match. You don't want Carmella to really look weak or anything. You don't want her taking pins. That's fine. Bianca didn't pin Bayley, though, even though those two are in a rivalry. And Bayley beat Bianca last week despite having not won in 2 months prior to that. So it doesn't really make sense to me why they had Sasha be the one to pin Bayley, because Sasha, I guess she's the champion and they want her to get a pin and stuff just to look strong, but Bianca also shouldn't have lost the week prior. And should probably be winning to have reason to continue the feud. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that I'm nitpicking that I said that I would at the beginning. There was a cool hair spot where I think Charlotte had Sasha in the figure 8, and Bianca put her hair in the ring as like a rope, like a Rapunzel type deal, and then dragged Sasha to the corner and then tagged herself in. I thought that was pretty cool. Asuka hit Sasha to ringside. She landed on Reginald, I think is the sommelier's name. Carmella Sommelier took a bump. And then Bianca ended up taking a pin to I think it was a code breaker into a natural selection combo. I'm not a fan of Bianca taking the pin, but you can't have Sasha take the pin because she's the champion. You need your champion to look strong. So of those two, Bianca has to be the one to take the pin. And this is where I go back to saying I don't like that it was an elimination match, because if it was just a normal match, Bayley could have taken the pin to Bianca. Oh, no, that doesn't work, does it? But Bayley could have taken the pin anyways, because she's the one who needs to be protected the least out of those 6. So, you know what I mean? And you could have protected Bianca still, kind of thing. Maybe have Bianca do a finish to Bayley, have Charlotte, throw Bianca out of the ring, pin Bayley off of Bianca's move. That way you put Bianca over for finishing Bayley, but the tag team champions retain, you know? I would have preferred that to an elimination, but, you know, it makes sense that Sasha couldn't take the pin. At the same time, also, getting pinned by a double team of Asuka and Charlotte, like, that's nothing to be... There's nothing that a casual fan or a hardcore fan looks at there and they're like, oh, they're burying her. It's two of the most protected people in the roster, you know, being double teamed by them and getting pinned. Yeah, that's fine. That's acceptable. But ideally, she wouldn't have to get pinned in the first place if they didn't make it an elimination tag. There was Bayley shenanigans where she was like, oh, come tag your partner, Bianca, even though Sasha was out on the floor. Bianca was selling her knee as well off of she went to the top and then Charlotte like big booted her and then she fell on her knee or something. So she was selling the knee. There was a backstage Street Profits segment where they were hyping up the rest of the show. They overhear Sammy yelling at a producer saying, hey, was it you who stooged off, you know, the leaked audio? I'm not saying it's you. I'm not accusing you. I'm just asking you if it was you or if you know somebody, because I know you work there. You have access to it, blah, blah, blah. The Profits give him a gift of a t-shirt saying, I was Intercontinental Champion, and then he storms off and they're like, hey, yo, you forgot your shirt, duh. Like, we made it specially for you. So that was a cool little backstage segment. Then they had Bryan versus Jay up next. Jay ambushes Bryan during his entrance, and then the referees and management come out to kind of break it up. Jay breaks through them, keeps ambushing Bryan. They go to commercial. They come back from commercial, and Bryan is struggling on the outside at ringside, but he gets in the ring. The match starts. The match starts off with Jay kind of dominating Bryan, as you'd expect, because Bryan just got ambushed. But as the match goes on, Bryan gets back into it. He comes back into it and gets control. They had a false finish where Bryan was going for the running knee. He gets intercepted with a super kick. Jay goes up for a splash. He lands the splash, but when he lands the splash, he sells his knee because he hurt his knee. I think Bryan might have been working the knee earlier. I can't really remember because I had to get up and do something in the middle of the match. So I didn't see the entirety of the match. I missed a little bit of it, but either they just did that out of nowhere or Bryan was working the knee, which is more plausible. And then he sells the knee and then he pins him, but Bryan kicks out because enough time went by, you know, like 5-6 seconds goes by before he starts the pin, which is definitely enough time for Bryan to recover, to kick out. Then Bryan won with a running knee later on. Another really great match. Bryan gets his win. You know what I'm saying? They're kind of running the risk of giving Jay too many losses, I think. He hasn't won in a while. So you're kind of running the risk of, okay, Jay's going to lose and put somebody over. You know what I mean? So I think next week on SmackDown, they need to give Jay, whether in a tag team match with Roman or whether in a singles match, they need to give Jay something that he can win, a match against somebody that he can win. You know what I mean? Maybe have him win against Bryan, maybe have a rematch and then Sammy gets involved or something because they tease Sammy and Bryan backstage because Bryan had a backstage interview after that match with the interviewer asking him, seemingly your business with Jay is in the past. What's next for you? Bryan's like, I've never won the Rumble, so I'm officially announcing I'm going to be in the Rumble and I'm going to try and win that. Sammy interrupts it. Says that Bryan was always saying that Sammy should defend the title more, saying that Bryan was at fault for the title defense and then the lumberjack stipulation happening this week, but he's going to win and then he's going to meet Bryan in the Rumble and fuck him up, I guess, pretty much, to sum things up. So they have that. So they teased more Bryan and Sammy stuff. They teased it earlier in the year, a little bit earlier in the fall, and then they went back to teasing it. So I don't know. I guess they might be going that route. Then it was Biggie versus Sammy in the main event in a lumberjack match for that Intercontinental Championship. Like I said earlier, the result was leaked after the taping on Tuesday, so that was kind of a little bit of a rip moment. But it was a really good match. I liked it a lot. As far as lumberjack matches go, it had all of the tropes that you would expect. The heels beating up the face and then putting them back in instead of just immediately putting them back in. The heel getting thrown out after all that happening and then begging for the face lumberjacks not to hit him and then he gets back in. They had a moment where Sammy tried to dive into the quote-unquote the crowd, but beyond the barricade to try and escape the arena, and then the faces grabbed him and then put him back in the ring kind of thing. They had a moment where Sammy was outside again on one of the sides where it was equally split heel and face lumberjacks. The heel lumberjacks and the face lumberjacks kind of, were at odds. The face lumberjacks trying to get Sammy in. Sammy's kind of fighting back. Sammy ducks an attack by one of the face lumberjacks who hits Cesaro. Cesaro, I think it was Drew Gulak. Shinsuke attacks Gulak, and then the face and the heel lumberjacks start fighting at ringside with Sammy against the apron just kind of hiding, and then he's kind of realizing, oh shit, everybody's preoccupied, everybody's distracted, here's my chance, I'm gonna haul ass and get out of here. He runs up the ramp, or kind of scurries up the ramp. Apollo Crews realizes, hey, you're not getting out of here. He sprints full speed up the ramp and just tackles Sammy. It was an incredible visual. And then all the face lumberjacks go up the ramp and then they kind of carry him on their shoulders like you were at a concert when somebody stage dives. They kind of carried him like that into the ring, kind of to his grave kind of thing, to bring him to the, sacrificing him because they got him in there. And then Biggie, ended up winning the match. My thing with this match going into it was it's a bit of a lose-lose. Again, in a similar vein that I mentioned, it was a lose-lose for them to do Carmella and Sasha at TLC because Big E is starting to build up momentum slowly. They didn't outright push him big time, but slowly he was gaining singles victories and stuff like that, and victories here and there. So they're pushing Big E. He's gaining momentum. Sammy has a whole lot of momentum and is doing great work right now. I don't necessarily agree with Sammy losing the Intercontinental Championship, but I do agree with Big E winning the Intercontinental Championship. You know what I mean? So it's a tricky spot because you have somebody who probably shouldn't be losing the title yet, and then you have somebody who should be winning the title now. So it's kind of like do you pull the trigger on one of them at the right moment, or do you pull the trigger on the other at the right moment? Do you wait for Sammy to be at the point where you should take the title off him and then risk, overextending the wait for Big E, or do you pull the trigger on Big E now when he should win it and cut short the good work that Sammy was doing? You know what I mean? So they had that, which was kind of a tricky thing for me. On the flip side of that, I can see the argument that Sammy, although he's been doing great work, he's been doing similar stuff every week. So maybe they were like, okay, we're going to quit while we're ahead with the Intercontinental title. We're going to take that off him so we don't have the retaining the title by resourceful means, countouts, whatever, because that might get stale eventually. So we're going to do it early, take the title off him early so we don't run that into the ground and make him a stale act. Put it on Biggie now because Biggie should be winning it now. And then Sammy is already made. His character is already there. He doesn't need the championship. He can go and do whatever. He can go feud with Bryan. He won the Sammys, which was a great segment last week, by the way. He won those 2 Sammys that he can carry around in place of the title and kind of act delusional and be like, you know what? I lost the title. That's whatever, but I have the Sammys, so I'm good kind of thing. He can go feud with Bryan, whatever. And, so yeah, because Sammy, he was doing great work with the title, doing great work overall, but he doesn't really need the title. With Big E, you don't necessarily need it, but the title is a big help at getting him over as a singles guy, because without that title, without that physical proof of him making it as a big single star, he's not really going to reach that. You know what I mean? Whether it be a world title or a mid-card title, he has to win something. You know what I mean? And he's not ready for the world title yet, mainly because Roman's not ready to lose it. You know what I mean? And Big E doesn't really have enough momentum. I kind of wanted Big E to win the Rumble. I don't think he will anymore now, so somebody else has to. But you know what I mean? So it was tricky. I was torn, kind of. I was on the fence with the decision to have the match. But Sammy losing the title, Big E winning the title is the right call, I think, at the end of the day. It was just a tricky situation because, like I said, it was a case of, do you pull the trigger too soon or too late on one of the guys? Because you're going to time it just right on either one, but you're timing it not right on the other. But then again, maybe being ahead of the curve with Sammy, taking it off him now before he got stale kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I think it's overall the correct decision to have Big E win the title. I'm really happy that Big E won the title. I'm happy that they're taking Big E seriously. I knew that they would be taking Big E seriously as soon as that Talking Smack segment with Paul Heyman dropped, because when WWE sits down, they're like, okay, Paul, put this guy over, tell him that his tag team shit's going to be a footnote like he was in the Shield and he's Roman Reigns, WWE's serious. Whether they change their mind or not in the future, that's one thing, but you can tell right now they're serious about having Big E as a singles star. So I think Big E will hold the Intercontinental title for a while, maybe drop it to another guy, maybe Buddy Murphy, hopefully in the future if they decide to build him, which they absolutely should. But regardless, I think he'll hold the Intercontinental title maybe to SummerSlam, maybe a little bit before SummerSlam, and then I think he'll go on to win the world title off Roman. I think Roman's going to keep it until Big E's ready for that big main event push, and then they'll pull the trigger on Big E, get the title on Big E. Maybe Big E wins Money in the Bank. That could be something that's good to see. One other thing from the main event that I absolutely loved, there was a nice image, there was a nice camera shot from kind of looking down the ramp of a dejected Sammy against the barricade and Big E on the turnbuckle lifting the title, which looked great. And the thing that I loved is Sammy really sold how important the championship was. So did Big E because he won and he's celebrating, but a babyface celebrating winning a championship is just kind of commonplace, you know what I mean? But the way that people sell the loss of the title, I think for me is a little bit more important than people sell the win of a title. You know what I mean? Because if somebody sells the loss of a title like, oh man, I lost, that's unfortunate. Oh well. You win some, you lose some, then you're like, was the title really that important to them? Because it gets that image in your mind that, okay, the title is going to be important to whoever wins it, but after they have it for a bit, it's going to lose importance to the holder. And if it loses importance to the holder, it loses importance overall. You know what I mean? So if you have the holder of the title have it be that important as Sammy made it, and then Sammy was on the verge of tears, dejected against the barricade, and then eventually, before they went off air, they showed Sammy actually crying after he lost the title, which I think is a brilliant touch by Sammy, because it really puts over how important the championship is. And for that Intercontinental title, the mid-card workhorse title, you need it to be important. You need all the titles to be important, but that's down to how it's booked, and that's down to the characters and how they perform, the performers. And Sammy did a really good job of it, I think. So I would like to take my hats off to Sammy, because he did a really, really good job of selling the importance of the title in losing the championship. I don't know if they'll do a rematch, because they don't have the rematch clause anymore. They took that out while I wasn't watching, I think. And then, or maybe I was still watching then. I don't really remember. But they don't have rematch clauses anymore, which I think is a stupid idea, but it is what it is. Happy that Biggie won the title. I'm excited to see what they'll do with Biggie. I'm excited to see if they'll extend the Biggie and Sammy stuff until Rumble and then have Biggie move on to other things, or if they'll have Biggie move on right now and then have Sammy and Brian do a program leading into the Rumble or something. You know what I mean? I'm very excited. Smackdown is so good and Raw is so shit, man. Like, this Smackdown, I'd probably give it like an 8 or a 9. It's not a 10 out of 10 show because I had a couple nitpicking issues with it, and it's really hard to get a 10 out of 10, but an 8.5 and 9 out of 10 show, absolutely. It was fantastic, which is really important too, because it's the Christmas Day episode, right? So you have the factor of people have the time to watch it, but also, it's Christmas, people want to spend time with their family. So if they do decide to watch the show, it better be worth their while, and it definitely was, because it was a fantastic show. Like I said, 8.5 or 9 out of 10 rating from me. Really, really good. Top to bottom, really good. No big issues, just a couple nitpicking issues like I mentioned. And, the right results for the most part came about. So I'm really happy with that show. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think about the Big E and Sammy thing. Let me know if you agree with me in that it was kind of like a tricky situation, or if you thought that maybe Sammy has already gotten stale for you. I disagree, but everybody has their opinions. Let me know what rating you would give the show down in the comments. Let me know what you think they're going to do for the future of the titles. Let me know if you think they'll do Sammy and Big E running it back. Let me know if you think they'll do Owens again at Royal Rumble for Reigns. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed the video, that's great, man. If you want to check out more of what I do gameplay videos also, and you can check out a couple links to playlists of stuff that I'm doing in the end cards at the end of the videos. You can follow me on Twitter, link in the description. You can hit up Peace Tea on Twitter to sponsor me, man, because I've been begging them for that sponsorship for that fucking 3 years, brother. And yeah, man, be sure to turn on that notification button so you never miss an episode, because YouTube likes to zuck your boy and not put my videos in your sub boxes. So by pressing that nice old bell icon, you will get a push notification anytime I do upload, and you'll never have to miss it. And yeah, man, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, share it to all your friends, comment down below, all that good shit. And I will see you guys next time.